Hey, hello, leaders. Welcome to Run to Your Leadership Challenges. This is Paul Grau Jr., your host. And today I want to get right into it. I want to talk about high risks that we take in life. Not only on the people that work for us, all right, as a leader, man, we're bound to take high risks on the people who work for us because we have to trust them at times. We have to send them out to do jobs that you know, we may or may not, or they may or may not know exactly how to do. Um, Hopefully they do, because if you're sending out some of your employees to do a job, or if you're expecting them to do a job and you think they're a high risk, well, you need to get to the bottom of that. You need to figure out why they're high risk. Why do you feel that they're a high risk? Are they not trained properly? Have you not mentored them well enough? Do they not have the experience that you think they need? How do they get all that? How do they get to the point where you could feel comfortable with them doing their job to the best of their ability without thinking they're a high risk? You know, there's high risks that we take and on our people. We may think some of our people are high risks, but I want to ask you, do you think that you're a high risk? Do you think that you're a high risk for your company? Do you think that as an employee that you're a high risk and that your boss thinks of you as a high risk? Maybe it's a specific task that you do at your job or one particular thing that you're like, man, I don't know that enough. I'm a high risk. Well, I guess in order to answer that question, if you don't know, is just ask yourself, can people depend on you? Can people trust you? Can people rely on you to get the job done correctly and satisfactorily? The bottom line is we have people that depend on us every day of our lives. And we prove that we're not a high risk or that we are a high risk by our actions. And it's the actions that become habit that allow other people to think of us as a lower risk and where they can trust us and depend on us. You know, whether you're a high risk today or not is one thing, but think about your past. Think about any times that you may have been considered a high risk. How did you want your leader to treat you? What kind of training did you want? What kind of mentoring did you want? How did you want your supervisor to give you feedback? Did you want to be left alone just to get the practice in? Did you want grace if you screwed up? Did you want to be corrected on the spot? Or did you want to make mistakes and learn from your mistakes? You see, when you answer all these questions on how you wanted to be treated when you may have been a high risk, ask yourself also if you're treating your people today that are high risks in certain areas that same way. Because there's going to come a time in our life where as a leader we're going to have somebody who works for us that we're going to consider a high risk. And that decision comes down to you on why they're a high risk and if you're going to choose to use them in that area where they're high risk. You know, I was a high risk early in my Air Force career. I was a student leader. I was actually in a tech school for Morse code. Yeah, that's how long ago I was in the military. Actually, it was 1987. Okay, so that's still going back quite a ways. But 1987, I was in Fort Devens, Massachusetts. It was an Army base. I was in Air Force, and my first tech school right out of basic training was an Army base. And the unit that I was in had about, I don't know, probably 200 students, I guess. And we had a bunch of classes during the day, and then we had a whole another set of people that went to school at night. So, from like 4 to midnight or something, and then the day shift went from like, you know, 7 till 3 or something like that. And it was a little bit of changeover usually. I was a high risk because I was a student leader. Shortly after I got there and got settled in, I had some student leaders approach me and ask me if I was interested. And at first, I was like, I don't know, I just want to focus on the school. But they kept on me, they kept asking me, and they said, we think you'd be really good and we want you to be a student leader. So finally, I gave in and I was a student leader. And I was at that tech school for probably a good 6 months, maybe. I ended up being cross trained into another career field because if you want to know the truth, I just could not pass the speed of Morse code that I had to pass. It wasn't that I didn't know Morse code. I learned the code and I could write, I could pencil copy. So if they were playing the Morse code, I could write the letters down and up to like Delta 16 speed, which is kind of like 16 words a minute. But you had to type and you had to pass while you're typing at 20, Delta 20, which is 20 words a minute. And the problem that I had is I couldn't type worth a darn. And we were doing it on these old, man, I think they were old World War II keyboards. Like they were these stations and the keyboard stuck up about an inch and you had to pound on these keys, kind of like almost chicken pecking, with the two fingers. But I just could not type. And when I did type, the format had to be exactly. So there was like, if I remember right, there was like 5 groups of 5 characters, and then you had to hit the space bar 2 times, and then there was 5 more groups of 5 characters, 1 space in between each group, and then at the end of the 10th set of 5 letters, you had to hit return. If you hit a space and then return, that was a mistake. That counted as a mistake. So most of my mistakes were formatting errors. I knew code. Like I said, I could code. I could copy 2 and 3 characters behind. So the code was going, but I was looking for the keys and still kind of keeping up 2 to 3 times, 2 to 3 characters, in the rear, I guess, So at the end, it would stop and I would still be typing, 2 or 3 characters before I got to the end. But anyway, they added on some time and let me stay an extra month and then another extra month. And so anyway, back to our story. I was a student leader, and the student leaders had 3 different levels. You had a green rope, you had a yellow rope, and then you had the red rope. The red rope was the head student leader. The yellows were the more veteran student leaders, and they had a little bit more seniority than the green ropes, but not as much as the red rope. Red rope was like the king or the queen. They were like in charge of all the students. And then you had student leaders which were in charge of the, or I don't know, you had the permanent party, the NCOs that were in charge of the student leaders, and the student leaders kind of made sure the day in and day out daily business was being taken care of and things were getting done. So as I progressed along, I became a yellow rope, and there was a red rope always. And then finally, the red ropes and the other yellow ropes, they all graduated and moved on, or made it through and went to their first permanent station. Well, it became where I was the only yellow rope. I was the only yellow rope. And the NCO, he approached me. His name was Roddy Jenkins. He approached me and he's like, "Hey, Paul, do you think you're going to pass this Delta 20 and get in the advanced? If so, I can give you the red rope." And I was like, I'm not sure. And he's like, well, I don't want to promote any of these green ropes because I want you to stand out as the leader, the head student leader. So there was me as the yellow rope, no red rope, and there was about 20 green ropes. And finally, I told Sergeant Jenkins, Roddy, I told him, I was like, hey, it's not looking good. I don't think I'm going to make it. But he took a risk on me. He took a risk on me and leaving me as the only yellow rope. But finally, I was like, listen, promote some of these green ropes to yellow ropes because I don't think I'm going to get through this Delta 20. And I had about a week to go, and I was struggling, and I was same old. But anyway, I told them, I said, I think all of these people should be yellow ropes. And I said, if I had the choice, I would make this one person, or I think these two people, red ropes. And so he took my advice and he promoted them all. He didn't promote them to red rope until I was officially taken out of the program. And I had to give up my rope when I was taken out of the program. And when I gave up my rope, then he promoted the two people that I recommended for red ropes to red rope. But anyway, he took a chance on me. And that meant a lot because I was a high risk, but he still didn't want to, he wanted me to stand out as the leader. But I was to the point where I was like, hey, you just need to promote some more people because I'm holding them back. So I was a high risk to him because he was going to give me the red rope. And I turned it down because I said, no, until I get in advanced, I don't want to have the red rope. So I remember that to this day because I want to treat other people like Roddy Jenkins treated me. I want to take risks with my team. I want to show them that I have the confidence in them to take risks on them. And if they're not 100% confident, they may lack confidence. I'm going to pull them to the side and I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to encourage them. I'm going to coach them and I'm going to give them the training that they may or may not need. A lot of times people they lack confidence because they've never had anybody treat them with that much respect. They've never had anybody take a risk on them. So today, that's what I encourage you to do. And if you are a risk to your company or in a specific task or to a client or a contractor, I want you to figure out what you need to do so you are not a high risk to your leader. Hey, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, I invite you to please share this with somebody and pass it on along. Hey, tomorrow we'll have a new topic, and I think we're going to talk about the lottery tomorrow, Powerball maybe, and instant lottery winners. So hope to see you back tomorrow, and until then, run to your challenges. We'll see you.